Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap here, of course, with the Trashman, back for another edition of the Waiver Wire podcast and live stream if we get anybody here watching on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, you have questions for Trashman or me, or Trashman or I. Is it Trashman or me? Is that, I think, the proper way to say it. Yeah. You can, or for the both of us, you can get them in the comment section. Also, as usual, I know it's a new season, but as usual, if you have questions about who you should drop, whether or not you can drop these guys, whether they're safe to drop, put those in the comments too. We'll circle around to some of those at the end of the show as we get to these things. Trashman, what the hell's going on with you, brother?
Just running around like a chicken with my head cut off today, but I'm here.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Okay, so as everybody knows, we're here to discuss the Waiver Wire cheat sheet, which is our product for our pro members over at RosterWatch.com. It's going to have free agent acquisition bids on there, our recommendations for it, and also in tiered rankings, our preferred Waiver Wire pickups this week based on some of the pro tools that are now up at RosterWatch.com. And so we'll just go through it. Trashman puts the skeleton of this thing together, and I kind of do some oversight of it as editor of the site, but this is usually kind of Trashman's baby. He does a good job with it. And Trashman, I think we just need to start out talking about the running backs first, because we now have an issue with, for you as Jeff Wilson, kind of the headliner here with the Elijah Mitchell injury. It feels like the reporting we've gotten out of the San Francisco media and for Pro Football Dog and some of these other people on Twitter is that we're looking at probably 6 to 8 weeks for Elijah Mitchell. And we just don't know. Tyrion Davis-Price was a healthy scratch to start this season. It kind of sort of shades of Trey Sermon from last year. I don't necessarily think that necessarily dooms him to a Trey Sermon outcome this season, but certainly something to keep in mind there. Jeff Wilson was clearly the next man up. They also had Jordan Mason, who we played a lot in preseason DFS, who's actually, he's a pretty athletic, good little player, but, an undrafted free agent that was used mostly on special teams. Jeff Wilson seems like the guy. My only concern is, look, we even saw it. I can't believe Deebo Samuel keeps scoring rushing touchdowns. We talked to
you were saying, like, going into the season, there's no way Deebo Samuel
the very first game, he shoves it down my throat with a big rushing score. So it's just, just crazy. Deebo continues to contribute like that. I honestly think, I know this is not a waiver wire thought, but I think this helps Deebo Samuel over the course of the next like eight weeks or something, maybe just as much as anybody. But Jeff Wilson, what are you thinking? What is your outlook there? And do you like him more just across positions than basically anybody else? Is there? Is he the marquee pickup this week? Because if he's the marquee pickup this week, this might be a week where if you're not hurting too badly, maybe saving a little bit of fab, kind of going for some of these guys that are higher upside plays, maybe down the stretch of the season and stashes, could be a little bit more important as far as I see it. Is that the way that you see it, or is Jeff Wilson the guy you must go out and get?
I see, kind of a three-way tie between him, Curtis Samuel, and Jarvis Landry, in my opinion.
See, that's interesting because you put Jarvis Landry there. I bumped him down a tier as far as fab because you're not going to have to pay that much for him. This is fantasy, and people are just so interested in not taking guys who are old. And I just think Jarvis sort of feels like a guy that's one of these low upside kind of plays that a lot of people don't really like, too much to go out and really break the bank on as far as their waiver claims. So I don't think you're going to need to pay out the nose for Jarvis Landry, but I do realize, 72% of snaps. He had the 9 targets for 7 receptions and 114 yards. That's all pretty impressive. We're going to get to wide receivers in a little while, mainly talking running backs right now. But I will say this, when we get to Jarvis, one thing I'll say is that Jameis looked like shit for the first half of that game, and he didn't really get that connection going with Michael Thomas or Chris Olave for that matter.
Chris Olave didn't have a catch till the second half of the game.
Right. So, yeah. Anyway, just back to the running backs. We have X Diamond. Before we do that, we have X Diamond in the comments asking here, should he trade away Higgins, Hollywood, and James Robinson? Already. Higgins, Hollywood, and James Robinson for Kupp and Alexander Madison? I would.
No. You would?
Yeah, I get by far the best player in that whole trade.
You get the best player. I mean, Higgins, Hollywood. It just seems like he must have a deep bench if you can afford to give away Higgins and Hollywood.
Yeah, but you get Cooper Kupp. You get a nuclear weapon.
And James Robinson looks like the number one in Jacksonville, like I thought he would.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would take that deal. I take Cooper Kupp anytime I can get him, and I guess it could be a little bit of recency bias there with T. Higgins and the way that he went out of the game. He won't be out long though. It's just to get that was a concussion, right? For T. Higgins.
I mean, if he can afford losing those players, then that's fine.
Yep. Chris Thompson asked, "What do y'all think of the Jags going to do moving forward with ETN?" I think the better days are ahead for Travis Etienne. I agree. I
just think the rumors of James Robinson's demise were greatly exaggerated.
Yeah, well, dude, James Robinson looked he looked no worse for the wear. He looked fine. He really did look just totally fine. So, yeah. But anyway, speaking of James Robinson, let's talk about some of these running backs. On the waiver wire cheat sheets, this next group, I was interested to hear your thoughts about Rex Burkhead because Jesus, talk about rumors of decline being over exaggerated. I mean, Rex Burkhead is still running 71% of snaps. He got 19 touches, 8 targets in this game. And what's concerning about this is it's not for Damian Pierce is that it's not a situation where Houston was like trailing and the game was completely out of reach. Houston was actually kicking their ass for a while.
Well, and to me, though, that feels like they went with the guy who they trust in that situation, the guy who they're not worried about losing the ball or,
Why would they ever worry about Damian Pierce losing the ball? He has no history of that.
Well, I know, but he's a rookie. I feel like they just felt safer in the hands of Rex Burkhead in that situation.
So how long can that be the case?
I don't know. Rex Burkhead is 32 years old.
I know. So how long can that really be the case that he keeps a 22-year-old Damian Pierce, who's by far a better runner, by far a better player off the field? I mean, Damian Pierce. Here's the thing about Damian Pierce too, and I heard somebody talking about this or maybe it's on Twitter right after the game. It's like whenever they put Damian Pierce in, they ran the ball with Damian Pierce. You know what I mean?
They were obvious.
It was a major tell. It was a major tell for what they were going to do. Like
works against them.
Yeah, so I don't know if they're going to be able to kind of work that out or how that's going to, at some point it feels like, Damian Pierce is going to have to take that job, right? Whether Rex Burkhead gets hurt, whether it's a natural ascension. It's disappointing for Damian Pierce fantasy owners and managers, people who played him in DFS this week, but I don't think that the requisite, completely necessary response is to just go run to pick up Rex Burkhead. I'm not sure that we're talking about a starting runner for the long term. Now, if you lost you lost Elijah Mitchell or something like that, and you need some kind of immediate backup, you cannot get Jeff Wilson. Maybe Rex Burkhead's a guy that can help you for a couple of weeks, especially in PPR. But I kind of see Damian Pierce kind of moving up, whereas I'll see Rex Burkhead sort of moving down. And we can see those scripts completely flip by the end of the season. But hey, man, you got to win right now. I'm not going to break the bank for Rex Burkhead at all. You can see exactly where we have him by looking at the cheat sheet. Okay, so we have Bob Watson asking, should I grab Taysom Hill, who's tight end eligible, and drop one target, David Njoku?
I would.
Who's Njoku have this week? Browns. Let me look. Sorry, I don't have
Browns it. Have the
Jets.
The Jets.
I'm not sure I drop Njoku right before he plays the Jets. Man, that's a pretty good matchup for opposing tight ends. Even though Mark Andrews didn't necessarily take full opportunity this last week, the way that a lot of us were hoping for. Gasson, look, man, the whole Taysom Hill thing. That's your deal. I think that's going to be super, super, super up and down. But here's the thing. Tight end scoring in general is really super up and down. I think if Gerald Everett's out there, I think I'd rather pick him up than Taysom Hill right now, just based on the fact that, who knows what's going on with Keenan Allen. Right? Trashman. We saw Justin Herbert really just distributing the football to a lot of these guys. And Gerald Everett, man, you forget he's just a freak when he gets the ball in his hands. I like, being part of that offense. Taysom Hill, you could end up playing him, and he gets you a zero burger, 1 week. Certainly has a lot. I mean, that's definitely or he could get you 2 carries for 4 yards down at the goal line. He gets stuffed, and that's that, So I think I might go with the upside there. Jalen Reagar, is he worth a dynasty sash? I would say no. Did Reagar? Maybe look. Let me look at the Vikings. Hold on. Did he do anything?
No.
This last week? I didn't. Not that I noticed. I maybe in the. I don't know. Maybe in the deepest dynasty leagues, but no, I'm not stashing him in any dynasty league that I play in, and I play in some really, really maniacal ones that are super deep. Renan Dias, would you trade Alvin Kamara, Elijah Moore for Christian Kirk and St. Brown? Is there Amon-Ra St. Brown? Kamara and Elijah Moore for Kirk and St. Brown? No. Alvin Kamara? I wouldn't trade Alvin Kamara by himself for Christian Kirk and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jesus, you want to throw in Elijah Moore too? Elijah Moore should have had a much, much bigger game than he did this last week. If you go back and watch it, he had 2 huge opportunities completely missed. One by a pass interference, and one was he just barely couldn't stay in bounds. John DePaul says he's being offered Mike Evans for Kyle Pitts. T is his number 1, so Evans would be, but I'd be streaming tight end. What did you think about Kyle Pitts, Trashman? I know we're going to get questions on the side about Kyle Pitts, what to do about him, because he was miserable in this matchup. If you would have looked at the matchup tool before the game, though, you would have seen that the Saints are just a terrible matchup for opposing tight ends. And he was a guy that I was a little bit worried about playing anyway. I think that I remember looking and seeing this week, who did the Falcons get? I wish I had the matchup tool up. So the Falcons get the Rams, not necessarily going to be a whole ton better there, but as 10.5-point underdogs here to start, we could see a game script where they're going to have to get the ball to these guys for sure. Ren and Dye saying Alvin is hurt, so I was worried. No, I mean, they're saying that he's fine. It's
a rib injury. I think he's going to be good.
Whenever they say day to day, it means they're planning on playing the very next week. It's when they start saying week to week that you got to worry a little bit. Okay, so caught up on those questions. Let's get back to these running backs. Jamal Williams up here at the very top too. I really like that, Trashman, because it looks like he has the goal line role, and it looks like Detroit, even if their defense is going to be so bad all year long, I mean, they have some pieces. I mean, they got some pieces.
Yeah, they're up and down the field. Their offense looks better than I thought it was going to.
Yeah, so I think that if they get down to the goal line, I don't have the we always do this thing before we have the ranking sheet pulled in, and I don't have the exact numbers for the distribution of red zone touches, but I guarantee whenever we get that thing, it's going to be super, super, super heavily slanted towards Jamal Williams, even though we did see DeAndre Swift just kind of go bananas there. I see you have Rashad White on here, along also with Khalil Herbert. I'll just say for Khalil Herbert, he's one of these stashes where if he's available in your league, I don't think anybody's going to be running out to go get him because he only played 20-something% of snaps, and people aren't going to. He had the 1 touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, Khalil Herbert is like the epitome of efficiency. I mean, you just look at what he does on the ground compared to what David Montgomery does on the ground. But, they basically had the same yardage on the ground, but with Herbert getting half the touches. I mean, and it was like that last season, too. I remember there's a statistic where Herbert and the time that he spent on the field last season bested Montgomery as far as, yards per carry when he was on the field last season. I mean, Herbert really, he'll need a David Montgomery injury to really get, set loose. But I think, too, as with this offense, we really haven't seen, even in this first game, a number 2 receiver emerge. I think it's going to be a lot of both running backs this season for the Bears.
I think Equanimeous St. Brown's going to be their number 2 wide receiver.
I mean, in the camp when I was watching, I was like, it looks like Brown is on the field most of the time.
Yeah, so I mean, EQ St. Brown played 76% of snaps. He played more snaps than any other wide receiver not named Darnell Mooney. And what a disappointment! My wife has Darnell Mooney on her team. She didn't know Darnell Mooney from Adam, she's like, hey, why did you tell me to get this Darnell Mooney a-hole? It's like, what is this guy? Yeah, you have to hope for better days ahead. As always, don't sell super low on those guys. MK asks in the chat, trading Deebo and Michael Carter for Wentz and Jonathan Taylor. Ooh. I mean, dude, can you push accept yesterday for that? Yeah, go ahead. As long as you're getting Jonathan Taylor, you're on the right side of that one, man, for sure. MK, and that's in a 16-team league. My God.
Wow.
Okay. Who makes that trade after last week?
I mean,
who makes that trade? I don't know. I just don't understand.
Maybe somebody who loses Mitchell.
Yeah, maybe just like Byron says, a liquidation trade, like he talks about on the trade cast. Anyway, you had what I was gonna say with Khalil Herbert. I think if you're in a dynasty league or if you're in a keeper league and Khalil Herbert's out there, I mean, this is the last year of David Montgomery's deal, and if Khalil Herbert continues to look good and efficient in a keeper league, especially these leagues where you can keep him for like a 16th round pick next year or something like that, if you pick him up off waivers and he's still on waivers, that would make Khalil Herbert a lot bigger he would be right at the very top he would be a guy that in a keeper league, I would put in like 30% to get Khalil Herbert and just hold him in hopes he's going to be the starter next year. And then, there's backdoor stuff too, Trash Man. There's stuff or trapdoor kind of stuff where if Montgomery gets hurt, he's golden.
Yeah.
If this staff that didn't draft David Montgomery goes sour on David Montgomery, I'm not quite sure. I believe that they will, but just in case, if they do, that seems like another way that Khalil Herbert could sort of fall into some trapdoor productivity down the stretch. So, keeper league stuff and stash stuff, I certainly like Khalil Herbert. But then also Rashad White feels like a good stash too. And I tweeted about this during the Sunday night game, Trash Man, that with Rashad White, you had Chris Collinsworth just going on and on and on, who's been in production meetings with these dudes all week.
He shouldn't have been talking so much.
Oh, because of the sore throat. Yeah. Anyway, he was saying that, like, dude, through the course of the year, you're going to see more and more and more of Rashad White.
Well, he's the obvious number 2.
Yeah. And that was something that changed through training camp because whenever Byron was there, he was running like 4 behind Kenyon Barner and stuff. So he really made a late push. Rashad White's a good player. We loved him at the Senior Bowl. So certainly a guy that probably in sharper leagues is already going to be stashed. But if he's there, he's there. I've noticed that you put on Kenyon Drake on this list. I hate that Kenyon Drake's even on here. I wish I could move him down even further. But I didn't want to out of deference for you because you had him a little bit higher.
I just feel like a player of his skill set,
he's gonna have maybe one or two more.
But I feel like even with J.K. Dobbins back,
and what about when Gus gets back?
Well, okay, I don't know when Gus is getting back, but I do feel like J.K. Dobbins is back. I still feel like Drake has a role with his skill set there.
Okay, fine. Jalen Warren is another guy we probably need to discuss. I think that I consider Drake in about his territory. Now that we know that Nacho Harris, it doesn't feel like Nacho Harris, the reporting about Nacho Harris has to do with his Liz Frank injury. That was the first thing I thought. I was like, shit, it's his foot. It's this whole thing that Mike Tomlin lied about all preseason about his foot. He got stepped on, and then Najee comes out after the last preseason game where he played and said that he's got a sprained Liz Frank. If it was going to be anything having to do with that, I was going to be really in on Jalen Warren, but it feels like that's not really that. But just something to keep in mind there. Tomlin lies. They definitely lie. So a guy like Warren, man, talk about a preseason stud, and he looks like he's definitely the backup to Najee Harris. So definitely could take a stab on him. Any of these guys a little bit further down that you want to hit on before we move on to wide receivers, Trash Man?
Zack Moss. As much as I hate to say it, he played ahead of James Cook. He got the same amount of targets as he did carries, I believe.
I can't think back to Thursday. Let me look at the snap counts tool. So for the Bills, it was Zack Moss, 37% of snaps, 6 targets. Yeah, 6 targets, 6 touches, 6 targets, 12 touches. Let's see. Moss played 37% snaps. Singletary played 59% snaps. He got the 2 targets. James Cook only played 5% of snaps. Man, because after that fumble, he was just out, right?
Yeah.
He's doghouse. We have our boy Minion Hunter here. Minion Hunter. That's his name always throws me off, but that is Minion Hunter because he's talking about Devin Duvernay, saying Devin Duvernay ran at least some of Hollywood's old routes. One of those TDs was at least. That's a big deal for fantasy football purposes. I'm trying to confirm if it was all his routes or some of his routes or all of them. Will certainly keep us informed on that, Minion. We know you have a finger to the pulse of the Ravens there like nobody else. And Duvernay's certainly on the sheet. Not sure. I have him right at the top, though, because as Corbin Perry's asking with this very next question, for me, the biggest waiver wire pickup, this week, if you're not in really, really bad need at running back, and I can't believe Trashman and I just agreed on it. We both came to this. Maybe it's just a consensus. I don't know, but it's Curtis Samuel. If you watched the game, you saw that Curtis Samuel looks like he's absolutely back. He looks like the guy that they paid last year. They paid all the money to. He looks like the guy in 2020 that you could just plug into your roster every single week. Now with the Washington, I hate it. I have to scroll down to the Washington Commanders on this tool. I still can't stand that. 71% of snaps. He had 11 targets. He also got I'm not sure how many. I'm not sure. Did he have also some? He had some design touches out of the backfield too. Yeah, and then he had the touchdown. And Curtis Samuel with 11 targets. We know Carson Wentz locks onto these dudes. It's interesting to me that the next closest wide receiver was Jahan Dotson at 5, and then Terry McLaurin at 4. Terry McLaurin got his bacon saved on that 9 route down the right sideline for the touchdown. But
it seems like if teams are going to angle to shut down McLaurin,
they need to angle to shut down Curtis Samuel. Dude, he's a baller, man. I'm like Curtis Samuel's the guy who I'm excited for this week for sure. Much more so than Jeff Wilson Jr. Again, if you're a fantasy manager who has a good, well put together team that was able to sustain any losses you might have taken at running back or any real bad situations at running back, like say you had Cam Akers or who else was just disappointing as a possible starter. God, I mean, are you worried about Zeke, Trashman? Are you worried about the Cowboys in general? I'm worried as hell about CeeDee Lamb. That look on your face says it all.
I'm not worried about Zeke as much because I think they're going to have to lean into him even more. The rest of the skill players, yes.
Why so high on Jarvis? You already explained it, but it's just because all the targets, snaps. He looks good. I mean, he looks like he's healthy for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, he led the Saints in receiving in a game in which Jameis Winston didn't really even look that great yet. I think as the season progresses, I think that connection just going to improve.
We mentioned Jahan Dotson. He's up here close on this sheet. I feel like he's in a different tier as far as your free agent bid for him, but certainly, I mean, Jahan Dotson should have been drafted. But if he wasn't, you should definitely pick him up. Even though right now I pick up Curtis Samuel, who I wouldn't have necessarily said before drafts should have been drafted. That was a guy where I'd have to see it out of him. That's a veteran. I'm a little bit more comfortable prospecting on these rookies as far as the actual draft, but certainly, that's a top 15 pick in Jahan Dotson that I believe he scored 2 touchdowns. So 5 targets, you're not going to get that every week. That's amazing efficiency. I'd be honest to see what is as far as his touchdown dependency, as far as wide receivers, so Jahan Dotson is 80% dependent on touchdowns for his fantasy scoring. He's he's if you don't count Ty Montgomery as a wide receiver, which our tool apparently does, but Jahan Dotson is the most touchdown dependent wide receiver after 1 week.
If OJ Howard could be counted as a wide receiver, he would definitely.
Was that 2 targets for 2 touchdowns? Ren and Dye's asking for the top 3 waiver wire pickups. Go to rosterwatch.com. Look at the waiver wire cheat sheet over there. Okay. Any other wide receivers you want to touch on here, Trashman? There's a big list of them.
I mean, Tyler Boyd potentially, Josh Palmer potentially.
Is Tyler Boyd owned in less than 55% of leagues?
Yeah.
It's just hard for me to believe. Well, he should have been drafted. What about Donovan Peoples-Jones? Is he the new number 1 for Cleveland?
He's at least the number 2.
Well, based on this thing, he's the number 1, right?
But it's I think it's a similar situation with McLaurin. I mean, like teams are shutting down or trying to shut down Cooper, and that leaves DPJ.
Yeah, but I mean, they both played the exact same number of snaps.
I don't think the team considers him to be the number 1 receiver.
Amari Cooper went 3 for 17. Peoples-Jones on 11 targets went 6 for 60 on 83% of snaps. But it's that 11 targets versus that 6 targets that really pops out.
I feel like Kyle Phillips in a PPR league. I think maybe you push him up, bump him up a bit if you're in a PPR, 1-point PPR.
Yeah, and then Minion Hunter asked about Devin Duvernay. I think it's probably fine to go pick up Devin Duvernay. I'm not going to put the same kind of free agent bid down on him as I would for a Curtis Samuel. We didn't talk about Josh Palmer. I didn't feel like Josh Palmer is the immediate replacement for Keenan Allen, though, Trash Man. Didn't that seem like it was DeAndre Carter?
It did, but if you go back to last season, whenever Allen was out, it was Palmer who picked up the slack.
Byron just loves Palmer this year. I've always said I don't trust him because but now it's like, well, if there's no Keenan Allen, then you can see Mike Williams do a disappearing act like he did on Sunday. It's got to be somebody.
Yeah,
Herbert's distributing the ball all around, dude. It's crazy.
But I feel like based on what happened last season, Palmer is the biggest beneficiary.
Okay, we got to talk about tight end or any of these Greg Dortch, any of these other guys. Any of these other dudes, really. You can just look at the cheat sheet, man.
Greg Dortch is running Rondale Moore's routes. He's doing everything that Rondale Moore would be doing. And
Rondale Moore will be back next week. So what are we doing?
Yeah.
Okay, so tight ends. This is interesting to me. I think the two clear is Gerald Everett and Taysom Hill. I sort of talked about it whenever I forgot who it was earlier in the chat was asking about those guys. But there's Everett, there's Taysom Hill. If you did draft somebody who you're not happy with, I know like my neighbor drafted David Njoku. He was texting me on yesterday morning saying like, hey dude, should I pick up Taysom Hill for David Njoku? Then we got that same question in the chat. That's obviously something that people are thinking about. I think Gerald Everett is still out there. I think you should go with Everett Hill.
Everett, I don't see the upside.
What you saw this very last weekend?
Season long upside, I guess.
But it's really easy to see it. Just close your eyes and say, like, oh, he plays on the Chargers. Good team, AFC West shootouts.
Hey, but also, in a situation where Keenan Allen is healthy, does he get that same kind of action? I don't know.
But what do you know about Taysom Hill? He doesn't even play tight end.
But he plays tight end in fantasy.
Are you? But the trash man. You're talking like you're
claiming you're trash man. You're using the tight end position.
You're using such a cockamamie straw man argument because the thing is the exact argument that you're using for not liking Gerald Everett is the perfect reason not to like Taysom Hill.
No,
I don't know what the hell's going to happen.
It seems like they're manufacturing touches for Hill, regardless.
You're going to depend on some gadgety Taysom Hill stuff where they put him in at the do his own read stuff twice a game.
I feel like they could do that every game.
I want a tight end that's out there that's running 25 routes.
I like Everett. I think he's fine. There's nobody on the waiver wire right now, a tight end that I'm just like champing at the bit for. I feel like Hill's kind of an unknown as to what his ceiling could be. And so to me, that gets
I think Robert Tonyan probably needs to. I like to pick up Robert Tonyan.
That whole Packers offense, like garbage.
Yeah, we got Chris
Maybe
Daniels saying
Devontae Adams is making Aaron Rodgers look good instead of the other way around.
We got Chris Daniels in Twitter saying the cheat sheet isn't up yet. Yeah, Chris, like Trashman and I are arguing over the cheat sheet right now. After this show, that's what the show is. That's us figuring out the cheat sheet. Man, we'll get it up just as soon as we get off. I'm gonna send it to our web guy for sure. But we're just ironing out a few kinks here at the very end. We're tied in. Anything else you want to hit on besides that, Tunyon? I mean, I've loved Tyler Conklin. Tyler Conklin played all this. Tyler Conklin played all the snaps. CJ Uzoma is the tight end 2 for the Jets. And if you watched any of the preseason or you listened to the podcast we did with Mike K, we've been talking about this Tyler Conklin stuff for a little while. So I think a deeper leagues, Conklin, certainly interesting. Tunyon, certainly interesting. I wouldn't go breaking the bank on O.J. Howard just yet. All right, Trashman, let's hear your Justin Fields hype and what is this propaganda? I can't believe you wanted him so high up on the sheet. And then I'm like, why? And I'm like, what do you even score? And you're like, I don't know. I just thought he looked good.
I felt like he turned the corner. I felt like that offense looked better than I thought it was going to. I mean, they beat the 49ers. I felt like in clutch situations.
That game was played in a torrential goddamn downpour, Trash. I mean, it was so hard.
And Fields still made clutch throws when he needed to. He looked like an NFL quarterback.
Okay.
I mean, do you think he looked better than Trey Lance?
What is that? That's a cream of the.
Trey Lance is on the waivers.
That's the cream of the crap kind of scenario.
Okay, but if Trey Lance is on the waivers and Fields play better than Lance, would that not put him into a higher echelon?
No, I still pick Lance because I like the coaching there better. I like the surrounding pieces so much better. He gets to throw to Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and all the. He's not throwing to Dante Pettis and Byron Pringle and EQ fucking St. Brown.
I mean, even so, he won the game doing it. I mean, I like Fields. I like him as a prospect over the long run.
All right, so Trash Man, you have a heart out here too, just as I do here in the next few minutes. So let's talk about any of these other tight ends you want to talk about, any defenses, and then if you guys have questions about guys you can drop to pick some of these guys up, let us know on the sides. I haven't gotten any questions yet, except for one that I've gotten from one of my other neighbors earlier today, who was texting me about a quarterback. So if you guys have questions about whether you can drop somebody, pick somebody else up, fire it up in here, Trash Man. Any other quarterbacks and any defenses that you're looking at as far as picking up and streaming?
I mean, Bengals, they played the Cowboys this week. I think that.
And you might have had the Bengals already because, so if you had them to play them against Pittsburgh, which didn't go too well, boy, it would have been better to have the other side of that one. But if you have them, you can hold on. I think the same's true of Cleveland, right? They have another good matchup coming this week.
Yeah.
Any others, or should they just look at the sheet?
Logan Thomas, I feel like as long as he's healthy, he's a pretty good fantasy tight end. I feel like this Commanders offense looks better than I imagined it was going to. Maybe it was just because they're playing Jacksonville, but I like what I saw.
All right, so I don't have any questions here, but I did have a question that came in about Derrick Carr. Derrick Carr, are you dropping him to pick up any of these waiver guys this week? One of my neighbors asked, should I drop Derrick Carr to pick up Carson Wentz?
To me, that's a coin flip.
It's not a coin flip. It's idiotic. It's the same thing I told him. So what are you talking about?
Carson I don't like Derrick Carr as a quarterback.
Do you like Devontae Adams as a receiver?
I like him as a receiver, but just like I thought, Derrick Carr cannot sustain more than one wide receiver in fantasy.
Derrick Carr was the quarterback 10 this week.
Hunter Renfrow sucked. Did not live up to his ADP, and that's because Derrick Carr cannot get the ball to Devontae Adams, Waller, and Renfrow on a consistent basis. I don't see it happening.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's a good offense that plays in the AFC West, and he's got Devontae Adams. I'm not dropping him just yet. Question: is AJ Brown for Lamar Jackson a good trade? So if you're getting AJ Brown, yes, it's a good trade. If you're getting Lamar Jackson, no, it's not a good trade. Those aren't the kinds of trades you want to be making unless you're in a super flex league. And I doubt that you would be offered Lamar Jackson in super flex. Trashman, when we come on here next week, are people going to be asking about whether or not they should be dropping Ezekiel Elliott?
I mean, just based on his volume, you can't.
Yeah, but I know you're going to say that you can't, but are people going to be asking?
I hope not. I mean, it's rough out here for a Cowboys fan.